all there is that's really going on is this movement to the right, this these sort of false options of, we need to fight for less government. We're all doing badly economically, so we need to fight for the well-being of the big corporations. We need to present an alternative that seems a little more viable, I think.
Exactly. The question is that, we don't want to sit around and wait for climate change or the fascist revolution. So what do we do now?
I think the goal should always be actually for openness and clarity and accountability. What I think the most important thing to do with government now, just find out what works. That's it. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Finding out what works and giving it, because that was one of the basic principles that they had there right at the very beginning of the country. That there had to be an open accounting of what government does. And I think that's more than just dollars and cents. I think that's also looking at every aspect of a program and whether or not it is successful. And I think the tyranny of reason can save us, because I think the tyranny of reason is actually really good for the progressive movement, because it gives us an objective standard where we can say, look, we paid X dollars, we got this result. Now it's up to the public to make the answer of whether that's good enough or not, whether it justifies the expenditure of that money. But I think it is, because I'm not afraid of that as a progressive. Look at Head Start. Head Start is a perfect example. There's just case after case after case after case that demonstrates, the amount of money that you spend on Head Start is money that you do not spend later correcting a wide variety of social ills. The tyranny of reason says you fund that thing absolutely through the ceiling. That is a good idea. It has been proven to work. You give it the funds necessary to achieve its full and ultimate success. And you're equally tyrannical the other way. Even if you love a program, if the tyranny of reason says that, it's not achieving the results, the people are perfectly justified in getting rid of it, no matter, how benighted a program is.
And it's a good way to, I think, engage and acknowledge disagreements too, because if people disagree about the principles of what a government can do, then we can say, okay, that's fine, we can disagree about the principles, but then here's what will happen in practice based on which way we decide to go. I think it's a good way to unify a movement that has a lot of different philosophical points of view, I think. Because we won't be unified on everything, but some things we obviously will be unified on in the places that we really want to target, which is the hypocrisy that the system perpetuates.
Exactly. And I think, if you get things more naked, then the hypocrisy is harder to hide. So you get an objective standard for Afghanistan. You say, okay, if you insist that we're going to be there, we're going to define every aspect of this enterprise. We're going to say how many we're going to send. If you want to engage in this to the full stupidity, we give you the tools to do the full stupidity. But we do that within a rigorously defined framework where we know exactly in a specified amount of time whether you have succeeded or failed. If you failed, you eat your humble pie, you bring the troops home, and there is no argument at all about any of this.
Yeah, no, and I think that transparency is a good place to start, because I think that's actually a place where we're seeing people sort of get united. Like we were talking in the last recording, Zach, Brendan, you weren't there for this, but we were talking about how sort of the people who are supporters of Ron Paul and the people who are supporters more of the Alan Grayson side.
The audit the Fed thing?
Sort of the more libertarian side and the more progressive side sort of agree on auditing the Fed. And that's an issue of transparency, I think.
The Fed, a captured institution, to be sure.
Exactly, and I think that shows a perfect example of how, that can bring disparate people together. Because I think one of the things that we all care about is whether or not things actually work. One of the things that I think a lot of people are upset about is that it's getting harder and harder to tell because there's more and more bullshit associated with the process about whether things actually fucking work or not. And I think the more that you objectify these standards, the more you find ways to, meaningfully evaluate the success of government programs and make them apolitical. You can improve the way that government functions. You set goals and you either meet them or you don't. If you don't meet them, you find out why and you fix it. Or you decide that the goal isn't desirable or that this system can't, achieve that goal and you have to find another entire system of doing it. But right now, government just seems like this structurally incapable behemoth which is too wrapped up in, talking and not doing because everything seems to be written on the wind, it seems. And I want to decrease that. And I think everybody wants to decrease that. I think they want to understand what's going on in a reasonable way that they can feel like they understand the decisions that they're making. And I agree with, Galbraith, who said that, there is no economic principle that can't be explained simply. I think you can explain these things simply. I think that simply we've lost interest in doing that, and it's become more easy to hide and say, well, that you can't understand what we're doing here, you're just going to have to trust us. And that's just bullshit. Because, when I hear that, I say, what I hear is, we're hiding something which is not really something that you would support if you understood it.
Well, and Zach, you were talking about tyranny of reason, performance, results-based governance, going with what works and not going with what doesn't, based on clear criteria of what is working and what does not. That is so far from the current reality.
Oh yeah, the currency of the current government is not facts and accountability. It's bullshit.
So let's maybe bring this back home to what you and I and our viewers can do. Or should or might want to focus on, if they want to apply the principle of the tyranny of reason in practice, maybe making YouTube videos and talking to people they interact with, and that's the truth-based political discourse is what's needed then. As sort of corny as that may sound.
Well, it's like what Davis Fleetwood was saying at the end of his videos for a while. Remember that history is based on actual events. And, refocusing people on the actual events as opposed to, all the obscurism that goes on around them. Is obscurism even a word?
It is now.
You've said it on the internet, now it's true. That and death panels.
So okay, I think we reached a conclusion then.
Okay. And yeah, I think it's really interesting what you were saying, Zach, about transparency in government. And I was thinking we should save this for another episode. But in another episode, I'd like to hit the topic of should anything be confidential? Should the government have the right to hide anything at all? But let's cover that in another episode.
Privacy versus transparency for next time.
What I wanted to do is I wanted to start doing on this show sort of probably about once a month. I'd like to take a little time each episode for one of us here on the show to sort of present an idea that we have. Either something that we would, legislation that we would pass if we were the kings of the world, or some sort of idea for a social movement, or something that people can do to that we think would enact real change. Okay, and then we'll just sort of discuss it and see the advantages, the disadvantages, that sort of thing. I want to sort of steer away from the sort of obvious, well, the lobbyists won't like it, unless we're talking about sort of a concrete way to get around that sort of thing. But for today's topic, I wanted to discuss would be something basically that the lobbyists would be against, and that would be something we'd have to find a way to get around. But I'd like to talk about the merits of the idea itself. And here's my idea. Maybe it would be a good idea to sort of turn around the economic climate we have now and the job situation we have now to publicly fund risk in terms of individuals starting small businesses, to publicly back small business loans in a similar way to the way we run student loans.